Well, welcome to the Nancy Kay Coy Show, Inside the Business. This is where we slow conversations down and we talk honestly about health, business, and the decisions that shape how we live and how we lead, where we replace confusion and conversations that are really meant to move you forward. So today, inside the business of dentistry, we're going to talk about the gaps no one talks about with none other than my dear friend, Mark Gaylard. So today is really sort of a special conversation for me. It's one of the very, very few that I get to stop and sort of unwind with somebody that I know pretty doggone well. And it's not because of just what we're going to talk about, but it's as you get to know Mark in this conversation, like to a certain degree, I do, you're going to find that he's an absolute leader in the healthcare and dental industry. And he's someone that I respect deeply as an operator, as a builder, and someone who has seen this industry from inside at a level that very, very, very few people ever do. He's worked at the COO level inside mid-market, can't talk today, inside mid-market and consolidator dentistry. And today he's the CEO of the very successful, largest professional services organization in Canada and Dental Advisory Board. And what makes this conversation different today is that Mark didn't build this just from a theory. He built this from being inside the business and learning what was broken, the gaps, the inefficiencies, and the things that, again, nobody really wanted to talk about or wants to talk about. And we're going to talk about those things today. And we're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about systems where practices are actually losing revenue and what it really takes to build something that works, not just clinically, but operationally and financially. So Mark, I'm really glad we're doing this together. Thank you for joining me.
Nancy, thank you. That's a big introduction to live up to. I hope I match everything you put out on the table for us today.
Well, for those of you who don't know this, Mark was actually trained by Tony Robbins. So he there is no I can't. It's a matter of we're going to figure out how.
100%.
I think we talked about that in our very first conversation. Like it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when, and the noise of I can't.
Yeah, 100%.
Talk about that.
I've always been a big believer in the word absolutely. And when anybody posed a problem in front of me or a suggestion or a challenge and asked me if I could handle that challenge, even when I was naive, I said absolutely. And then I went back and figured it out, got the resources to help me get to that next level, source the right people, because the smartest coach in the world or the smartest leader in the world always has great people and resources around them. And I've built a team of very successful entrepreneurs and thought leaders and subject matter experts in this industry so that when I say yes or absolutely, I know that I can back it up because what I can't answer on the spot, I do have the resources to get those answers and to move the needle for our doctors and our industry at whole.
So what you're really saying is you're surrounding yourself by people that are smarter than you to a certain degree.
100%. 100%. It's like, if you look at a professional basketball team, probably the worst player that could possibly be on the team is the guy on the coach who's leading the team, because often a coach doesn't mean you're better. It just means that you've got a better line of sight on the whole game. And you're looking at it often from above and seeing all the different moves and the different players and how to create congruency, how to create culture, and how to, again, reach out and tap into the resources that can bring you that value and expertise that will help move a business and organization forward.
Yeah, it's really true. And I think a lot of people they're intimidated by that. And they think they've got to be the smartest person in the room. And when you are and you try to do that, don't you think that puts so much more pressure on you as a leader? You don't, because you feel like you have to have all the answers all the time. And you just, to me, that's a vulnerability. It's almost like setting you up for failure.
It's leadership mistake 101, and I am personally at fault of thinking I could be all things to all people and had to have all the answers, failed multiple times until I realized that no, you are who you surround yourself with. That's as an old adage as it gets.
That's so true.
And the people that you surround yourself with, my goal has always been to surround myself with very smart and powerful women and very smart and powerful men in this industry. And every day, no matter what role you play, it has to be a day of openness to learning. And as we're all gathering new information and we're learning on the fly, this information then becomes more cumulative, and then you've got more to back up what you say, and you still have those resources to fall back on when you need them.
And that is I agree with you. And even no matter where you are, we should always be learning. Always be learning and being
Mhm.
willing. I think that keeps us humble. Like we don't know everything. We shouldn't know everything.
Mhm.
All right. So yeah, thank you for sharing that because I know that's how you feel and I know that's how you live. So you and I have had some real conversations behind the scenes. What are people still not willing to admit about this industry?
Wow. I think people in our industry too are missing the boat of how vast and how great it is. And they're afraid to step out of their silo, which obviously pushes them out of their comfort zone. I've always been about abundance. There's enough work, there's enough wealth, there's enough clients for all of us. And the businesses that are going to fail and the people that will eventually fail are still living in that world where it's tunnel vision. Don't let anyone see what I'm doing. Don't talk about what you're doing. Go about your business. And I think if there was anything good that came out of COVID, it forced people to sort of open the kimono and ask for help and ask for what other people were doing to survive during these times. And I think if we got anything out of that shutdown and that chaos, hard to believe it's been several years ago now, but it made people communicate, it made people share ideas, and it opened them up. Because if you think you can do it all on your own in your little private silo, it's going to cave in on you sooner than you think.
Well, before the conversation, we started talking about AI and the reality that AI is impacting every single industry. And how do you think when you talk in terms of keeping things be sort of between the for lack of better terms, between the sheets or whatever, because you're not, AI is something that if you give too much away, I mean, somebody can literally take it really
Hmm.
quickly. So how do you think through that in exactly what you just said, by sharing, communicating, collaborating, but in a world of AI, because it is so easily you can put into. I mean, if you're a developer today, I'm worried about you,
Yeah,
right? I mean, you can.
100%.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the biggest challenge in our industry as a whole is the majority of this industry is still probably 45 years old and above. And then we've got this whole new crop of people who understand and who embrace all this new technology because that's what they've grown up with. An 8-year-old had an iPhone when I could barely, had that dial up with a long cord on it years ago. And so adaptation for the generation that's carrying this industry is probably the biggest challenge, and you need to really step back and be open-minded to accept this change has been happening all along. We've just been part of it on a much slower scale.
Mhm.
Things changed yearly during sort of our growing years and our blossoming in the business years. Things are changing daily, if not hourly, now
Yeah,
with technology. And if you're not willing to embrace it, the industry is going to surpass you.
yeah. Like we were talking about, it blows me away at how fast you can build with so many, well, just so many less people than even before, right? so
Hmm.
you so I think we have to, do you agree that we really have to raise the bar? And like you said, if so you're not left behind, you got to get on this train. And I'm not saying do anything that you don't feel good about or ethical about or whatever, but I'm saying that you've got to embrace what's in front of you because it is moving.
Hmm.
It's just, it's rapid speed. I mean, literally the time the new iPhone comes out, I think it's probably outdated.
It's yeah, and but the funny thing is, what a culture they've created that we're all chasing that next piece of technology, this $2,000 item that everyone needs to have every 2 years. right? And that this is what technology is going to do to us in the future is you're
Yeah.
always going to have it to be sort of part of the culture, be part of the crowd, and to keep up.
Yeah.
Because, it's funny when we were talking about this earlier, I was thinking of my grandfather and how he cussed and was so upset that he couldn't speak to a bank teller. And I thought it was the coolest thing that we could go up to these machines, boop, 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 and money would come out, right? And that's going back a million years. But when you think of at the rate that technology is moving forward now,
Yeah.
it's get on the wave or you'll be underneath it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm literally just blown away literally every day watching and I these new technologies, and as silly as it is, because I'm definitely way past 40. I actually took
Not a
it.
day,
I
not a day.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. But I actually took some classes, and I do it like 15 minutes a day, and it almost seems trivial, but I cannot believe how much that is going to change academia too, because
100%.
I just think it's going to change so much. And we live in academia, of course, because of board healthcare and dentistry, right? And
Hmm.
so much about that, but I think we have to really embrace this. So you've said clinicians aren't necessarily the greatest business people. Some of them are great, but as a general,
Lovingly said.
right? And I know that.
Lovingly said, yeah.
But you know what? It ties into exactly what you said about surrounding yourself with people that are smart in your, because without clinicians, we don't have a job,
We don't have
right?
an industry. Yeah.
They're the drivers in so much of what we do. So this isn't a negative comment by any stretch of the imagination. I think it actually opens up really positive dialogue. So, like I said, you've said lovingly that clinicians aren't necessarily great business people, but where does that actually show up in your mind in the day-to-day business?
It's it's an interesting journey because at no point, and every clinician can vouch for this, every business person in our industry can vouch for this, that was never taught in dental school, and
Right.
if it was taught for an afternoon, people were going off and trying to do lab and get caught up on their other work because at no point, and I always say this sort of tongue in cheek, was a future dental professional told that in 5 years from now, you're going to be responsible for 10 cars, 20 different lifestyles, 30 vacations, 25 kids. As you grow your business, you are now the profit center
Yeah.
and the nucleus of multiple lives that not only do you have to manage mentally and emotionally and to some degree physically, but you're managing these businesses and all these moving parts. It's not just about drilling teeth, and then all of a sudden you're buying new equipment, you're acquiring a clinic, you're speaking to banks, you're speaking to landlords. We talked about that earlier and how that can go sideways. It's great to be a good clinician, but part of the success of the dental advisory board is we do offer all those other professional services in order to support the industry. So yeah, at no point in any dentist career was he ever told during school that this is a business, not just a healthcare. You're not just a healthcare provider. You're a business owner.
And business is an acumen. It's a skill, and it's not something I think you just take for, you know, four four months in a class or something and have really know. It's like being a clinician. If you're really good at drilling in somebody's mouth or putting in implants or doing whatever you're doing, that's a skill, and you've perfected that. That was your journey. You're really great at that. But again, it goes back to putting people in positions where they're smarter than you in different positions. That doesn't mitigate
Hmm.
your value. It doesn't mitigate how important you are, even if you're the leader. But I think we have to be really smart about the people that, again, that we're surrounding ourselves with, because it ties into branding, it ties into the EBITDA, it ties into so much. Do you agree with that?
100%. Yeah. A smart leader will recognize other qualities. I've always said leadership isn't a title, it's a quality.
Yeah.
Manager is a title, right?
Mhm.
Manager is somebody who has a set number of tasks that they have to complete between a certain set of hours to move the metric. A leader is somebody who can influence people positively, work with them, and move the needle exponentially.
Yeah, forward. and execute.
Right.
Yeah, and that is one of the biggest things. I think a lot of people in business, they can come up with business ideas, they can have the vision, and I'm a visionary, so I get this.
Mhm.
But one of the what separates the those two is execution. But it's
100%.
executing where people want to follow you. And without vision, people perish. I mean, they just do. So they have to have vision. So I think you're absolutely right. It is all about leadership, but I think it's also being good and working within your giftings.
100%. Yeah. And I think one of the other mistakes we make is Sally's every office, right? So Sally's no good at this. Let's make her better. Well, that's again, leadership 101 fail is what is this employee really good at, and let's focus and cultivate that. We're so busy trying to take people within our environments or ecosystems and fix what they're not good at and not recognize, or we may even have to do some uncomfortable shuffling to put people in key areas where they're going to bring the most value, be the most happy, create a new level of culture. We're so busy in that old school thinking of how can I make you better at something that you're not already good at.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think too is as the practices have gotten busier and busier, is putting a lot of those responsibilities on people that don't necessarily have that gifting or haven't been taught. Not doesn't mean they can't be good at it. It just means that expecting somebody to be excellent at something when they don't have any real
Training.
understanding, yeah, training
Yeah.
is you're just setting them up to fail. And
Yeah.
I see this, Mark, literally daily. and
Hmm.
and i and I feel sorry for these people, and we wonder in our industry why we have churn. And I think that ties into it so much is that um, take the time, right? Ask people, what do you love to do?
100%.
What is your natural ability? What is your natural giftings? And then it is not a job. All right.
Hmm.
Now I want to be there. So you built businesses at the highest level, but what has this cost you personally that most people would never see?
I I think anybody who's an entrepreneur can attest to this is you have to be willing to give up time and you
Hmm.
have to be willing to risk everything and you have to be willing to risk it at all. You have to do it constructively with an outcome and you're
Hmm.
always moving towards something with a plan. But I've jokingly said to you when people say to me it's Friday, I'm like, what the hell is a Friday? I don't know. I
What's that
don't know
mean?
what I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. I have no clue what 5 o'clock means. And I don't say that begrudgingly because I wake up every morning going, really, I get to do this?
Yeah.
I get to lead this massive team. And it might be cliche, but if it's something you love, it's not a job, is completely in the space I'm at. But yeah, there's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of time. And people say, oh, you need balance, you need quality of life. Well, the things being in this role can afford me gives me the quality of life when I take time to and make the time. But I'm also willing to commit at the highest level. And again, that separates a manager from a business owner to an entrepreneur. That's
Mhm.
a graduated step to say, how much are you willing to go all in and how much you're willing to risk? And if it fails, are you willing to keep going? That's an entrepreneur.
I call that being in the 99%, or excuse me, because most people are in the 99%, you're in the 1%, right? If you want to be in the 1%, you got to be willing to do what the 1% do. And a
100%.
lot of people, and 99% of people are going to look at you and say, just like that, you need balance, you need this, and you did. Because I get that. I get the same thing all the time. You work too
Mhm.
much, but I get to do what I do. Like you
And you
said,
choose it. Yeah.
it is an honor to be able to do what I do every single day. And I have the freedom, and to your point, that when I decide to take time, away from the business, I get to do what I want to do. And um, we're all different, but I think it's the one percenters that change the world.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have times that you go up, and there's gonna be times where you go down. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And that's kind of the thrill. And I think entrepreneurs and high level business people love that ride. Like if there's
Yeah.
not a challenge or there's not, we talked about some of the business stuff I'm going through right now. The average, not the average person, but somebody who is going through some of the challenges that we're going through on business deals right now would not understand that at the end of months and months and months of work on the 11th hour, everything collapses. Nobody makes any money, but you've got to shake that off and get on to the next project or the next deal.
Mhm.
And yeah, balance is great, but you also have to look at a balanced scale. If
Mhm.
everything's balanced like this to me is boring. I'm not a person that does well comfortable. When people say, "Oh, I just want to be comfortable. I just want to be
Oh, yeah.
happy." Those are
Yeah.
my probably two of my biggest fears in life, to be comfortable.
Yeah.
It's nice to have comforts, but I love, there are multiple archetypes of different people. I'm the ultimate uncertainty person. I love living in almost like a chaos and complete uncertainty. It juices me every day, not knowing. It's a variety.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually am coaching a handful of women that are starting businesses and they're getting ready for their raises and stuff. And I teach them because they're like, sometimes I just don't feel really good about this. And I listen, if you are feeling good and and you're not feeling stretched, you're not growing. And
Mhm.
and as an entrepreneur, that's just it. It's funny too. I've gotten to the point too, Mark, where I almost don't want anybody on my team that hasn't experienced a slight limp, because it's not a matter of if, it's when.
Mhm.
And when you get to the point where you're ahead of your skis and you think, oh, I've got this, you don't have all the chaos figured out. You don't have every day is a new day. And it's
Yeah.
almost like the art of war. You're going to war every day, and there's some deals you win and some you don't. But like you've said, we get to do this.
We get to
So
do it every day.
yeah,
We get, and it's a pleasure. It's humbling to me some days when I look around. I'm like, shit. This is really what I get to wake up and do every day, and the type of people I get to share with and interact with on my team and see their level of professionalism. And you kind of you pinch yourself sometimes, going, wow, I'm at the center of all of this,
yeah, the
and all
nucleus
these
of it.
amazing people that are, sort of movers and shakers in the industry and
Mhm.
sitting at some pretty high level tables. It can be humbling at times, and don't ever lose that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Be willing. And I think when people bring ideas, because I've had this happen to me so many times, is allow people to bring the ideas, and so that the ideas still continue to come.
Hmm.
But I think being in a leadership position, because there is so much chaos, and I was actually going to ask you about this, is it's focus, and knowing when to pivot and when not to. I think that's one of the hardest things in the role of a leader, a true leader, is knowing when to say yes and when to say no.
100%. Yeah. Um, and when you touched on Tony Robbins earlier, and Tony Robbins 101 is you get and you are what you focus on. If you focus on what's great, you're going to find more of what's great. Uh, in the world we live in today,
Right.
it's so easy for focus people to focus on what's wrong because it's
Yeah,
always available.
yeah,
You can figure what's wrong in life and you can list it 100 times over all day long. But if you're putting all your energy and all your thought and all your direction into the negative, and that's where you're going, where are you going to end up? Right?
yeah,
It's like looking out a window and then just as simple as going over here and seeing completely different perspective, right?
yeah, yeah.
So what you focus on, you will always get more of. So if your life is if it's proverbial shitty or you don't like what's happening, it's because you're putting your focus and energy in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And it takes discipline to shift out of that, and it can be frightening.
Well, and it takes time too, especially when you're going through a season or when you're rebuilding, right? And
Hmm.
there's I think there's different times um, in in your career where things are going to be really up and things are going to be really down, but it's how you look at it. And there's a silver lining in every single situation. You just
Hmm.
have to look for it. and
Yeah.
and that, I think that's a lot of times separate the good from the great. And I don't think you see too many NFL quarterbacks going out on the field saying, well, we're going to lose this one,
Anyway, yeah. Throw the
yeah, I
game.
mean, they just don't, right? They're That's not a leader. You got, again, back to the vision thing. So kind of going back to dentistry, you and I both see where cases stall. What do you think is the biggest disconnect, Mark, between clinical excellence and business execution?
One of the biggest that I see on a daily basis, and if I say this kind of jokingly, if I never walk in another practice again, that's great on a consulting side. But when I listen to our consultants and when I was there myself, working in the daily operations, is communication is a big problem. Communicating information, it gets lost obviously in dental translation.
Hmm.
Often we have, and it's sad to say in our business, underqualified people in positions that are high net positions, high money value positions. And I think having those conversations with patients and understanding sort of different archetypes of human beings and how to speak to them, how to translate information, it's the biggest problem. You can have all the dental acumen and be a great clinician, but if you can't have the conversation, it stops. If you can't create value, have the conversation with the patient, you'll be
Hmm.
broken in no time.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly right in my lane because I agree with you 100%. I think so much of the it is communication, but also in the communication channels, making sure that your team members are communicating the same way so patients don't get confused. Because I've always said that when patients trust, trust converts. And I think a lot of times patients lose trust. Not that they think the clinician is necessarily not capable or not good, but if they're confused, they back off.
Yeah. There has to be a common talk track, and everybody
Mm.
preaches, culture and systems and these things, but until there's an actual, it doesn't even have to be a written manual, but a manuscript of how we're going to run our day, the common language that we're going to speak from the second a patient walks into the door to the second they're checked out through their whole clinical experience. It's gotta have a formula. Why do all the big restaurant chains in the world are successful and all the other ones fail? It's because the McDonald's hamburger tastes the same everywhere. I'm not comparing the quality of dentistry to that, but it's a formula that works.
No,
The language is the
it's
same. The two all beef patty, special sauce, cheese, lettuce, onions, sesame seed, blah 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 hasn't changed in a million years, and it works. And there's a reason for that,
yeah, it's
right?
consistency. It's
Yeah. So if you have
consistency.
5 different restaurants working under
Mhm.
your roof in your dental practice, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
5 different pieces of information, 5 different talk tracks. Patient is totally confused by the time they get to the front desk, unless there's a systematic language and conversation moving you through that experience.
Yeah, I see this all the time on the financial side, and patients are saying no. They're just not being guided through a decision, and a lot of times it is because of that broken down conversation where what hamburger are you encouraging me to eat? I mean, I'm again like you, not encouraging us to go to McDonald's, but it's a great metaphor
Typical,
because
great metaphor, right?
it is because people consistency matters and communication matters and not talking over the patient matters and it really is a continuity of the care that is so necessary. So this is an interesting story. Tell our listeners about your Saudi Arabia story and
Oh,
what
yeah,
happened, and because this was really out of the box.
it certainly was. So there, again, with Dental Advisory Board, there's sort of multiple moving professional parts that are here to support the dental industry. And we were referred to by a husband and wife who were living in Canada. They're originally from the Middle East. They were given this really amazing financial opportunity to go and work at a military base in a military hospital in Saudi Arabia. But during that time, they started to have a family, and they realized that they really wanted to bring their family up back here in Canada and wanted to come back, start their dental practice, and build their life here. But they're over there, all the business is over here. So we had a conversation through, I can't even remember how the original connection was made. And they said, this is what we're looking to do. I said, do you have any bankers, accountants? Do you have a broker here on this side? And they said, no, we just have a house in Ottawa, Ontario, in our capital. And I thought, okay. And their first question would be, so can you do this? And my answer was obviously, absolutely.
Of course it was.
Absolutely, I could take people from
Yeah,
Saudi
I can do this.
Arabia,
Right.
transport them across the globe, and give them a business to work out of. So I literally told them that if we were going to work together, they had to use my team. my team of experts in each one of their professional scenarios, so that we had a common, again, this goes back to having a common talk track, a line of communication that was all consistent. And I started working with a broker in Ottawa, several miles away from me, 5 hours away from me. And we were looking for a clinic. We knew exactly what we had. We knew exactly what our spend was. So we found a couple of situations for them to review. Um, got their banking in order, got their accounting in order so that they would have a business plan to share with the bank, had all their legal team, which was all part of the dental advisory board. And when we finally found the clinic, it was a gentleman who had been practicing for years, as old school as it gets, didn't even have a website. Just this
Wow.
nice guy who was sort of a cornerstone in the community, also Middle Eastern. So I thought this is an ideal situation because he still wants to practice. They want to come here and maybe take on an associate and go through that transition period. And the one thing that never really happens in a business transaction, especially in dentistry, is owners and sellers never meet until they're passing the keys and signing the check,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm here. I am. I'm going to break all the rules and break all the paradigms. Get these guys on a Zoom call together and say, look, if you're coming across the planet to buy this clinic literally sight unseen. And I'd taken video tours and we had had a lot of dialogue about the metrics of the business, which made sense. But you're going to work with this guy, you've never even met him. So we get on the call and I'm doing the introductions, being very polite, trying to set the stage. One word got said in Arabic and I was out of the conversation for the next half hour. And they literally hit it off and I just kind of sat there, scrolling my Instagram, making sure I was paying attention. And between
And trying to go,
Habibti,
where's my Google Translate?
exactly. So, like I said, between Habibti, Anshala, and God is good, we finally, by the end of the conversation, they go, we love him. And we hung up, and I called the seller. And he goes, I love them. So we literally did this transaction. Now this sounds like it happened in 15 minutes. This is a 6 month process.
Sure. It doesn't take it. Yeah.
It
It
does,
takes a long time.
this isn't dentistry's not like buying a bushel of apples. Anybody who's bought
Right.
or sold knows that.
Right.
It's a process. But they literally flew back to Canada on a Friday night, went into the practice on a Monday morning. They still have not seen the clinic. Sight unseen,
And bought.
met with the doctor. The deal had been done on the previous Friday. Everything was done. Checks were signed. They're the new owners. They came in. They've tripled the business. He's
Fantastic.
been very open to letting them modernize it. They have great social media now, great website, and they were smart too. They knew what they were good at. Again, going back to know what you're good at, and they said we don't need to be all things to all people. There's a massive Arabic community in Ottawa. Let's focus on the people that we know, the language that we speak, the culture that we can accommodate, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the business is blown out of the water. It's probably one of the most fun. You would think doing it globally, it would be the most headaches, the least amount of headaches we've ever had done transacting a deal.
Wow. I mean, what you're really talking about is alignment,
100%. Yeah.
which I'm going to plug my new book coming out. So I have a new book coming out. I think I told you about this called Stop Selling Damn It. And it's about establishing trust, alignment, and why really solid deals a lot of time go wrong because alignment a lot of times isn't formed. But in that in that transaction, this is kind of a crazy question. What almost went wrong?
You know what the funny thing was? It was never the two doctors. We had a banking issue. And the one thing that they did have, they had spoken to a bank in Ottawa. Not, I won't mention the bank, but I deal with the bank here in Toronto at the highest level of their commercial. And so 11th hour, all of a sudden this banker starts requesting all this insane stuff from them. We're supposed to sign next day. It always happens this way. Everything goes nice, 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 and then the last week
Yeah,
everything blows up, right?
everything, something, yeah, something, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So fortunately, I was able to make a call to Toronto and I said, could someone call this guy in Ottawa, simmer him down? Here's where we're at. 15 minutes later, I get a call back from Toronto. Don't worry, deal's done, signed, move on.
Excellent, excellent. So, what did you learn about people through that experience?
It was really listening and trusting. Probably one of the greatest leader, like the greatest thing a leader can do is become the greatest listener. And when you're dealing something on a global scale like that, I had a
Yep.
lot to learn. I was learning about a different culture. I was learning about a different way of doing business
I'm learning a new
and
language.
learning a new language. And I literally had to listen more than I spoke. And then I would take what I heard and then make sure I heard it correctly, sort of repeat it back. Is this what I'm hearing? Are we all on the same page? And then from there, take that information and go execute. So it really taught me by default. I've always been, as a leader, thought of myself as a great listener, but this one really put it to the test.
Yeah. I bet in that kind of a situation, I mean, you kind of you didn't even really have a choice. And
No.
especially, especially with the language barrier. So I know you, Mark, behind the scenes, and I know how much you care about building people, not just businesses. If someone is listening right now, trying
Mhm.
to grow their business, trying to figure it out, what would you want them to hear from you today?
A, you're not alone. And B, don't try and go it alone because whether it's someone like you or myself that are our claim to fame and our love in this business is coaching.
Mhm.
And as much as I run an organization or I'm this figurehead of a big professional service organization up here, my greatest joy in life is working with people one on one and coaching them. And again, it's not that I want to be better, but I can see what you don't see.
Yeah.
Um, we put things into perspective, we give things new meaning because again, you are the meaning, whatever meaning you give something, that's what it will be. And
Mhm.
sometimes having somebody to help you step back from that, realize other possibilities, or again, shifting the way you look, feel, and think can have all the advantages in the world. Because the biggest, failure we have is familiarity.
Yeah.
And the law of familiarity kills people because, well, we know the old saying, I've always done it this way.
So
Well,
I'll keep doing it this way.
yeah, and we know it's the old insanity thing,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
teaching people how to step out of the get comfortable being uncomfortable if you're in business,
Yeah.
getting people to step out of their comfort zone to realize that's when life really begins. On the other
Absolutely.
side of your comfort zone, it gets exciting, things start
Mhm.
to move, you challenge yourself, and you really start to grow as a human being. And because if you're not growing, you're dying. So I would rather be constantly growing, constantly challenging myself. And when I coach people, everybody has a story, and I let them tell that story once. And I basically say, if this was a book and you were writing it, the next page is blank. Whatever happened in the past, you might be accountable to, responsible for, but whatever happens going forward, you have the pen to write the rest of the story, and you make those choices starting today.
Which is great. You have
Yeah,
so like the world's your oyster. You can make it what you want it to be, and that's different
100%.
for that's different for every single person. So what's next for Dental Advisory Board?
USA, baby.
I've been waiting. I've been
we, we,
waiting.
we owe you since the Redcoats are coming. Uh, we've expanded. We're doing stuff right now. Sort of multiple verticals are already working in the U.S. Cirrus, which is our lease negotiators. They are both sides of the border. Prosperident does fraud and embezzlement investigation. Sad but true in our industry. We won't even go down that rabbit hole today, but sad but true. And some of our consultants are already working cross border. But I slowly want to start regionalizing these professional services to support the dental industry and bring it into the US within the next 18 months. A lot of the education that we do in the seminars and things like that, we can do from anywhere, but to be hands-on and have that touch and at the level of the services we provide at the Dental Advisory Board, it's boutique, it's white glove, it's not for everybody, you know, but it is for those who want to achieve and move their businesses and their personal and practical lives to the next level and still be able to
Fantastic.
practice dentistry and know that they've got a team working with them that has an open line of communication. Every dentist tells me they have a team until they need one. And then try and get people to communicate, pick up a phone call,
Yeah,
follow up, follow through. And it's a mandate when you're part of the dental advisory board, nothing goes more than 12 hours without being answered.
which is concierge medicine.
Yeah.
And it needs to be taken care of that way. I think a lot of people have lost that. So, what's next for Mark?
Wow, what's next? I need a vacation. It's a pleasure to be in this industry, to meet amazing people like yourself, and to surround myself with really, people that have just got vision. That's where I get excited. For me, to lead dental advisory board, really the charge into the U.S. and then the big goal for me is DAB global, because there's no reason why this platform can't become a global entity.
Mhm.
And I think, again, I'm reserving myself not to sleep for the next 5 years to do it. And I think what's next for me is to make this thing a global offering within the next 5 years.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So what are
To
three
eat well
ad
and drink good wine along
so
the way.
so we're going to close out with this. What are three adjectives to describe you?
Wow. Didn't you do that all at the beginning?
No.
I have the one thing that I'm probably most proud of myself, and it can also be a detriment, is I have endless tenacity. Like, I don't understand the word no. It doesn't even compute in my brain. You tell me it can't be done, it will get done one way or
We'll figure out
another.
how to do it. Yeah.
We'll figure
Yep.
out, and that's my absolutely quote, right? We'll
Yep.
figure out how it gets done. I think tenacity. I think, and not in an arrogant way, but I'm extremely confident in what
Hmm.
I can bring to the table. And I said, if I don't have it, I'll get the resources to support and back up what I'm saying and doing. And discipline. And I think discipline and tenacity are very similar. I think tenacity is to do it no matter what mindset, and discipline is to action it to make sure it happens. And
Yeah.
whether that's in business or being a parent or in family or even at the gym, years of training, it's discipline gets you results. And if you're not disciplined, don't even plan on having results.
Yeah. Yeah.
Results are discipline. Results are the follow through of discipline,
Yeah.
the end game.
I agree with that. And I think a lot of people, when it gets hard, they give up. So it's one of
Mhm.
my what those are three of my favorite characteristics about you is
Oh,
you're
thank
super
you, thank
confident
you.
and you are resilient. And you're definitely a visionary because we talk about vision stuff. But what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Well, just if you want to get a hold of us, just sort of generically is dentaladvisoryboard@gmail.com. Follow Dental Advisory Board on all our social media platforms. They're growing exponentially daily on the LinkedIn platform. Our Instagram is a little bit more fun and shows some of the things that we do. For us, it's not all about business too. We do like to do a lot of social events with our doctors where
Hmm.
everybody can just sort of chill and have a good time. We do a car show every summer.
I know.
I'm a big Corvette guy, and last year we had Ferraris, Lambos, Rolls Royce, Corvettes, and it was just a great day where people got to just get together 3 hours on a Sunday afternoon, chill out, share some experiences, have a couple of coffees, a couple of donuts, and away we go. We do a ton of CE education throughout the year. We end our year with a massive doctor appreciation night where we just totally give back to our dental community.
Hmm.
And we're fortunate enough that for these events, we don't fee our doctors. They're all sponsorship driven.
Which is
And you can imagine, so an entity of our size with the bandwidth that we have with doctors, sponsors are,
they want to be involved.
they're
They,
calling us and they want to be involved. And again, very humbling. I remember some of our first events having people see that it was a dental advisory board event asking me how they could be part of it versus us going outbound to say, hey, invest your dollars in what we're doing. So that first couple of years was extremely humbling on how fast it took off. Um, I can't believe that something like this of this scale has never really existed in dentistry. It does in sort of microcosms or sort of smaller groups, but 18 professional verticals to service literally from the day you graduate to your legacy and walk out the door.
yeah, I don't
We're
no
there. We're there to support that whole journey.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing